Hello, and welcome back to our third episode of the Interpreter Hub podcast. We are incredibly excited because we have a special guest for you today. Before we get into that, please remember who we are. My name is Mark Rockford. I've been in the industry for quite some time. I do speak English. Some English, right? I do speak also some Spanish, and I have been in the industry for longer than I would care to admit, right? I have this I would say youthful good looks, but that's also lying, right? But we're here to have fun. We're here to have something educational and do something interesting. If you have not already signed up for our newsletter, please do. If you like what you hear today, share it. The strength of our community is just in that, the community. Please, please, please send this to everybody you know and give us feedback too. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, and what you'd like to see more of in the future. Mateus?
Hello, everybody. My name is Mateus. I think most of you guys already know me. It's a pleasure to be here again, and we have a very special guest here for this episode today. He, the man, the famous one. He's going to introduce himself in a little bit. But just like Mark said before, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. That is very important. And for the next week, we're going to have a very special gift for you. Subscribe to the newsletter now. And ladies and gentlemen, in today's episode, here he comes.
Joining us today.
Interpreters. Oh, sorry for interrupting. That's your.
No, I was going to build you up, man. We have a very special guest.
Please build me up all the way.
You've probably seen him on YouTube. If you haven't, you should check out his videos. We're going to talk about some of those today. He's been an interpreter. He's been a quality control specialist, and he is now a YouTuber with his own channel. Join us in welcoming Mason. Mason, take it away. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you. I almost messed up there, but hello, interpreters. My name is Mason, the interpreter. This is Mason, the interpreter. I think that's always how I start my videos, but it is so lovely to be here. Thank you very much, Mark, and Mr. French Fries. I definitely am a big fan of yours. So,
likewise,
thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it.
That is awesome. And it shows that he watched our episodes, guys.
Yeah, he really
checking
did.
out already.
Mr. French Fries, my special name. Yeah,
his nickname, yeah. Mr. Sinister French Fries.
Yeah, no, I have to admit, it's definitely just the beauty of podcast, right? It is something that you put it on and when you're driving. And what I like to do, because I do that in the car, but of course you're not supposed to watch the videos in the car, so I just put it on my YouTube, but just like a radio, right? Like I just put it down and I listen. So often I don't really see you guys in like a picture in the face, but now I do. But I just listen to you, and it's been fun. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed. And truth be told, I don't think I finished all of the episode. I might have just turned it off at some point because I got home and then I had to come back later on, kind of thing.
Car ride's over.
There are ads here and there, and I can't really do that while I'm driving. But overall, I just felt like this is such a good thing to do, actually, because one of the biggest issues, in my opinion, in this industry is the lack of communication between interpreters. I really think so. It's just, it's just so easy to be put in your room and not deal with other outside world. So you don't know what's going on. So I think I just have to thank you guys for having this opportunity for me and for others to hear about other interpreters.
Yeah, that's great for everyone. Awesome. Yeah, and one thing that's different with our podcast here is that we don't want this show to be something boring for you who's watching the show now. We want to make it interesting. So, Mason, we really want you to feel comfortable here to talk about anything you want, the way you want. I think that's the way we differentiate ourselves, right, Mr. Rockford?
100%, right? That's exactly what we want. So that said, let's start talking about what we want. Let's start talking about you, Mason. Let's let everybody know a little bit more about you. How long have you been interpreting for? How'd you get it started in interpreting? Actually, where are you at? Right? Where does this podcast find you?
Because we hear very different things. Like, where are you located?
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much. Where should I start? Well, I will start with this first. When I was 3 years old, that's when I started learning English, because I was born and raised in South Korea. I grew up in just a normal family. But my parents, they had this vision that English is going to be the key to success or something like that. I don't know why, but they just really taught me English ever since I was a baby, when I could barely speak in Korean. So
That's
I
nice.
started learning since I was really young, and I was quite good at it. I maybe that's why I just really stuck to it, to learning English. But by the time I was in elementary school, they ask you to write down, like, what do you want to be? Or something like people would be like, oh, I
Hmm.
want to be a police officer. I want to be a president. I want to be, scientist. I would ask my mom, what should I write down? And my mom was telling me, oh,
Doctor, be
because
a
you are
doctor.
good at
Yeah, yeah.
English, she actually said interpreter. And that's when
Whoa,
I
that's
first learned
different.
the difference between a translator and an interpreter when I was like 5 or 6. Because, the words are different in Korean, for the translator and the interpreter.
Hmm.
So I was like, what's this word interpreter? Why is it not a translator? And that's why it started. But then when I was 14, actually right before I turned 15, I moved to Canada. So I grew up in Korea and then I moved to Canada. And speaking in English is no longer a useful skill that I had. It's just a necessity. That's something I had to do, right? So it no longer became special, like my skill of mine. So just kind of this dream of becoming an interpreter, that kind of ran away and just disappeared, and I don't know what happened to it. I just busy with real life, stuff. And last year of university, I actually found a job, that was the part-time, just remote interpreting. That was for like a really big companies, and I would just work from home. I did that for a part-time job, totally thinking that this is just nothing more than just making pocket money kind of thing. But after I graduated, COVID happened. So like just several months after the COVID happened, so my part-time job that I really never took it seriously became my full-time job. That's how it really started. And ever since then, I kind of really started digging and how I can be successful, how I can take this to the next level. So, started taking a bunch of courses, getting my certification, MBCMI, CCHI, all of those things. And, I have to say I got lucky with some of those opportunities with the QA and stuff like that. But that's where it really got me here today. I think many people are surprised when I say this. I have been only, I've been interpreting for only about 5 years now, maybe a little bit over that. And people say, oh, wow, you've only done it 5 years? Because there are many people who have done it for for their entire life, like 20, 30 years, right? So for me, I'm still young. I'm still learning. There are still many, many, many situations that I haven't been in. So part of me makes me feel like I am very lucky to be here, just even when I'm training other interpreters on medical interpreting, stuff like that. But I just want to say, although I am here, I'm lucky to be here, and I am here as a guest to this podcast. But really, I don't consider myself that much different from any other interpreters who might be watching this podcast. I still take calls every morning. I was actually just got here after my call. It got long, so I was late to this. My apologies once again. And after this, I will probably go back to interpreting. So that's where I am at. Yes.
That is awesome. There's so much we can dig into there, but it's really cool that you're still walking the walk, not just talking the talk, right? Because 5 years is quite a while, right? But you are more about having a merit based, like you are still learning, you still want to keep going, you still want to develop yourself, right? You've already got dual cert, is what I hear from you, the MBCMI and CCHI, right? Which is awesome. Very few people possess one, let alone both, right? I take it you're still in Canada. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, I guess I never really got to that part, but yes, I am in Canada. I live in a beautiful island called Victoria, or Vancouver Island, nearby BC.
Oh, nice. It's probably pretty cold at this time of year, right?
Here, actually, well, it was cold. It was snowing and, miserable a little bit. But now I think it's a little bit better. But it just rains a lot in here and it's windy. Yeah.
Yeah. Good thing you get to work inside then. That's really cool. Well, that is so awesome that you have the certs, right? And you, as you're talking about, you're still taking interpreting. Do you want to share any like really challenging situation or something funny or something just odd out of the ordinary that's happened to you?
Oh, wow. I mean, if you ask any interpreter who have been doing this for a while, I'm sure they have kind of layer like a top three, top five, most interesting calls and stuff like that. Definitely have many, and I am very well aware of the all the HIPAA, stuff, and I'm not going to go into detail and stuff like that. But really, if I have to talk about the funniest thing that happened to me was that when I got a 911 call one time when I was working for this company, um, this well, I maybe I might have misspoken. It's not funny. It shouldn't be funny. But this guy basically called 911 police on his cheating wife. And
Ooh.
yeah. I don't know what exactly. I don't know how it works, but I guess they were calling to send the dispatch police officers to catch the scene of adultery, kind of thing like that. But it's definitely not fun for them. But for me, I was like, can you call 911 for things like this? I just never heard of anything like that. But I guess it is a thing. So, and just life lesson: don't cheat. But yes, that's definitely stuck to me. But besides that, there have been just way too many memorable calls. And as a Korean person, this is not something that you get to experience. But I've got to handle several calls in my life dealing with a North Korean speaker.
Mm.
And it is almost like a completely different language because the words that they use is almost like, I would say somewhat more severe than the British versus American English. Some words you just do like, what is that? But for me, it was like that, but I guess they maybe don't have that many North Korean interpreters out there. So I was on the call. I was helping this person out, and it was amazing. I'm not going to go into details about what the call was about, but it was just a series of shocking things that you wouldn't want your enemies to go through, and that was
Wow.
kind of a
Nice stuff.
like
Those are both
really
crazy
yeah.
situations,
Oh
right?
yes,
That's really cool. I imagine like the maximum I've heard is like shut up and interpret, right? In the best possible way, right? Like cuz
right,
like you said, can you call 911 for adultery? Who knows, but it's not your job to
exactly,
decide, right? Like if they're
exactly.
there, they're on the line. If the
Right.
911 dispatcher wants to keep going and send police
Indeed.
to the scene of the I don't know if that's a crime. I don't know. I guess that would depend, I guess, on state and who knows? Who knows? I have no
No.
idea, right? And hopefully we never find out, right?
Yeah.
But so that's crazy. Same thing with the North Korean. That is just amazing. The things you hear, and so full disclosure, obviously I've worked at agencies, LSPs prior, created quality departments, listened to an ungodly number of calls, right? So you just hear some of the most amazing, mind blowing things that really open your mind, right? So, I mean, that's when we get in our mindset stuff, I'd always challenge you to keep an open mind, keep being aware of your limitations, try to find out your biases and whatnot, and try to keep those out of interpreting. Do you have any advice for interpreters that are just getting started, Mason?
That's yes, I do. I do have. I would like to say many, and hence all the videos that I've been making that I will continue to make. But
you're like shameless plug. Go to www dot.
one piece of advice that I would like to just share with everybody, um, for people who want to get started as an interpreter, you don't start perfect. Like, I think the imposter syndrome
Shocking.
is so real, And this is honestly the number one question, because I offer my course sort of like for free on YouTube. I just post it on there so people can learn if they want to learn, right? And the number one question that I get from people is that, hey, do you have a list of terminology that I can memorize before I start my first call? And like, sure, there are many resources, but I can promise you, you're not going to be able to memorize everything. And you're not going to know everything before you start your first day. And many people, I understand, because I was freaking out before my first call, for sure. And I wanted to get prepared. I wanted to know what's going on. But honestly speaking, because of the nature of the job that we do get many different calls, right? So it is not possible to be perfect. And frankly, I don't think anybody will ever be that person who knows everything. So if you are scared um, of going in because you think you will make a mistake, because you think you will not know something, there are other ways to deal with the situation. It doesn't require you to know everything. That is what I would probably, the piece of advice that I give to people who are about to start. But this advice actually changed, it flips 180 to people who have been working as an interpreter for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because now they are lazy. They don't want to do the studying. They don't want to do the research. They don't care if, something like that happens. Because, I guess just for obvious reasons, you got to kind of get comfortable with it. So for those people, I say exactly the opposite. Try to remember what you were like on the first day of your work. You were nervous. You are eager to study. That's where you should be. Whether you have been doing this for 5 years or 10 years, 15 years, doesn't matter. You're always learning. So please don't stop doing that. Those are the two pieces of advice. Yeah.
That is great advice. I will jump in and say, this is geared mostly towards remote interpreters, even if you're on site, right? That's great advice. But remote interpreters, you have so many tools at your fingertips, right? So even though you're not perfect, you have the ability to use Medline Plus, Google, Lingua, DeepL, all kinds of stuff out there, right? Now we don't get paid for any of those, so no associated market, unfortunately. But you have so many tools that can help you find what you're missing in the minute. And just as a reminder, you're there as their voice, right? And you're going to interpret their message, not necessarily every exact word, right? Which is a big thing. We can get into a whole description of that and probably even a debate later on. But as you said, you're not going to be perfect. I don't think you're perfect now, right? Would you say that you've got a perfect interpretation of everything you hear? Yeah, exactly, right? Humble.
Oh, I think we might have lost Mark. I don't know.
You got to be.
I'm here still.
there we
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Oh.
Mike, you're back now?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I
Live
just
here.
couldn't hear
Yeah.
you for a second,
Yeah.
but yes,
Me
please
too.
go ahead.
We're back.
Yep. No, it's. I think it's Riverside. I don't know if it's our internet today or the recording we're doing, but
It's Riverside.
we're trying in a higher
I'm also having
quality,
some
and
difficulties, yeah.
Yeah, but we'll make it work, right? But so no, I was saying you got to find the joy in what you're doing, right? Like if you don't like interpreting anymore, I'd recommend you leave, right? Or find a way to re-inspire yourself. I would say that's anybody in any profession, because it just shows you don't do a good job anymore. You come across as rude, grumpy. It just sucks, right? So if you don't like it, go do something else. There's plenty of other things out there you can do. Mark, this is my one skill. Then find the joy, because on the other side of that phone, or the other side of the video, or maybe even standing right next to you if you're on site, there's that person that is depending upon you, right? And that's the person I always keep in mind. In my mind, it's this little old man, right? Or a little old lady, right? Because I think of grandparents. But it could be a child, it could be anybody. So, I love the advice, and we will give you a shameless plug. Mason's spending his time to put out these videos to help people out with no remuneration whatsoever at this point in time, right? I think he's offering the free sticker pack if you sign up for, is it $199 a month? Mason, give yourself a plug.
Well, it sounds like a good business. So yeah, that's just one thing that I kind of have a very specific my own sort of a way of doing business. Yes, like what you mentioned is like $1.99 membership or stuff like that. It's I think at some point, I am sure that people will come up and ask or say things on this line. Sorry, I'm kind of like beating the bush around here. I think I want to maybe just mention my intent for those like YouTube videos and stuff like that. It is not 100% for other interpreters doing the charity work.
Mhm.
It is not. I'm going to come clean and, let everybody know I am doing this with the vision for my business. I am offering courses. I sell my courses and I have plans for doing things so that will make me money.
Uh-huh.
Of course, I say, I offer these for free on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. Yes, it's for free, but you are watching ads.
Yeah,
You are,
makes sense.
buying YouTube Premium. That will essentially pay me money later on. It's not paying a lot right now, but it will probably pay a lot more later on. So in a sense, the way I picture it, yes, it is very important that that many people do this kind of in a like sort of doing the good deed, big thing for other people, other interpreters. And honestly, the part of it for this podcast is also like that it is benefiting many other people. But also, I want people to understand at the end of the day that we all want to just, be successful on our own, whatever that means to you. And for me, this is what it is. I want to be doing this, whether that is interpreting, whether that is selling courses, or that is making videos on YouTube. I want to just do this and get better, so that more and more people are kind of in this together. So I that's what I just wanted to.
So you're saying you want to help other people and have an impact,
and at the same time make some money for myself. I think that's
of
the
course.
most important part. Yeah, for me.
I have a question.
Are you
for
saying you have
Mason.
rent and you'd like to eat?
Exactly. Yeah. Probably. I'd like to eat some stuff. For sure.
But like Mason, one question for you. I watch your content. I've been watching you for some time now, and I wanted to understand, like, how do
Right.
you see yourself? Do you see yourself more as an advocate that's there to help the interpreters, to defend the interpreters, or you think you're there just like a newspaper to inform the interpreters about what is going on with the market? How do you see your positioning with your YouTube content?
Definitely not the latter, like where I am just like, just giving out neutral information. Although I'm sure there is market for that. I'm sure there are people who will want to see that. But in all of my videos, at least what I do a tiny bit in each video is that I put my 2 cents in.
Yes.
Like I put what I think about this. Why I put what my opinion is. And that's not always right, of course. But for me, what I want to be, what I picture myself to be in is just basically a person who shares his knowledge to others, hoping that that will help others, but also that will help me, in a sense, whether that is in a monetary value or whether that is just gaining other people's support, whatever that means. I would like to just speak my thought, share my thought, because if you haven't noticed by now, just to make this a little bit lighter, I talk a lot. I talk a lot, and I my apologies in advance for this podcast, because I'm sure
We
many
will keep
people are
cutting
like,
in, man. Don't worry.
this guy just talks so much. And this is what I do with my YouTube. I tried doing it without the script once. I can film for like 2 hours just straight up talking nonstop, and I just don't know
Wow.
where to cut.
That's a
So
talent.
I
Well,
talk a lot.
Let's cut in there. This is a
Okay,
good
right there.
spot,
I
man.
will. Let's do that. Yeah.
Let's just jump in. So, I mean, yeah, fan of your videos. You've had some controversial videos as well because you're talking about some topics. So let's get into one, right? Voice. Like I'm sure you had to know that we were going to ask about this today, right? So give us brief summary of what happened with Voice, 45 seconds or less, just the facts, and then we'll dive in and we're going to ask some interesting questions. Go for it.
Okay. I will keep it short. Voice, now Equity, used to be a good company. Whatever that means to you, to my belief, it was a good company. At some point, shift change in management, things happen, and they just started doing some, to my definition, a little sketchy things. And at some point, they have gone through a massive transition, merger and acquisition type of deal, and they basically fired all their interpreters, which caused a lot of issues. That's basically what happened to my understanding, and I'm sure we'll get to it more. But as if this was not clear from my videos, I don't like it. Was it inevitable? I think some people could say that, but still, it just is something that at least I want people, when I say people, I want interpreters to know about so that they can prepare themselves. Just kind of like all the big techs, during the huge mass layoffs, stuff like that. We hear about it, but we don't really know anybody unless you're a friend that who works at Apple or Google, who actually gets fired the day after. We don't really feel that oh, they did a 15% cut. But for interpreting,
this was massive.
I really don't think anybody talks about that. Yeah, no one talks about it. There's no newspaper article. Nobody talks on YouTube. So
let's talk about it. So
exactly,
this is not uncommon, right? So Voice was a big company. I don't know if it merged with or was acquired by, the exact financials. It really doesn't matter. But Marty or Cloudbreak or whatever it was and Voice are now equity. As you said, your word is fired. I think they would say they stopped purchasing services from, right? Because I'm assuming that everybody at Voice was a 1099 contract, independent freelancer, right? Because they used people worldwide, which is, of course, our audience, right? And they were let go with little to no notice, right? Like the vast majority of them, which it happens, right? I'm going to speak from the company side and then go from there. Full disclosure, I am not in favor of the company or the interpreter in this. I'm just trying to be factual, right? So the company is there to make money. At the end of the day, they're providing a service that they charge for and they want to make money, right? Why they took the decision to be, something that, oh, you lost me. This thing is cutting out today, man.
Yeah.
I'm back. Okay, so we're gonna have to definitely do some editing on this and cut in and out of the stuff, right? But so at the end of the day, Voice decided to release all of these contractors, right? Little to no notice, nothing illegal about it, right? Completely legal. They can decide to stop purchasing services whenever they want, and just no notice, you're gone. Thanks, appreciate it. See you later. Bye. Right? I mean, let's just look at it like Mason. Let's say you're in charge. You are the guy that is president. I have no idea who runs equity, but let's say you're the president of equity, right? What would you have done differently?
Interesting question.
That is an interesting question because, if I were in the same spot, would I have done anything differently? And can I say that with confidence? I don't think I can. Because I'm sure, it's not going to be one person's decision to just go through changes like that. I'm sure there are many, many, many different, kind of things connected and interest conflicts and stuff like that. But I guess the way, at least I see it, is, and, I think, of course, the legality, how the legitimate is, that's important. Yes, of course. And of course, that's if it were to be illegal, and then there should be, a lawsuit, proper class action, stuff like that. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about whether it is ethical or not. And I think when we compare that, when we are thinking about that, we should compare it with other business, other companies. And of course, would I have a different approach? Oh, of course, I'm not in that position, so I don't think, I have, this is the solution that everybody should do in this situation. Of course, I don't think I can say anything like that. And
let's be honest, there's no way you could have kept everybody happy, right? The only way everyone would be happy is if you keep all of their services. So let's just say, right, that you have to cut costs, or I don't know the reasoning. None of us know the reasoning. We weren't in that decision, as you know, right? Do companies have an ethical or moral obligation to the interpreters that work with them?
In a sense, no, because I, from at least my understanding, what company wants is profit, right? But that kind of comes at a cost. Like the things that the very hot topic, at least what it used to be back in a couple of years back, those ESG. Those are not about profits on the just like a two-dimensional surface, but if you really look at it, it kind of is. Everything is about profits for a business. At least that's the way I think it. It's just like, how if I were to give like $100 donation to a charity, yes, I am doing that because I want to do it and that makes me happy. So on the two-dimensional surface, it is very silly thing to do to donate your money because you're losing money. But in the end, if you really look inside philosophically, you are gaining more profit in your mind, your reassurance, you're happy about yourself, you feel good about yourself. That is valuing more than that $100 that your donation you're making. So kind of going back on what we were talking about there, yes, I don't think it is about like, the legality, whatever that, that some people are mentioning it as. Whether it is ethical or not, I could say yes, that is also not their responsibility. However, at the end of the day, if this practice were to just, happen again and again, which has been, honestly, and I think I talked about that in the video, in my video too, this needs to be at least, I think, learned by interpreters, people who are actually affected by it. And just the way I see it, it hasn't been really that way. Like, as an independent contractor, people should be like entitled to know what their rights and responsibilities are and what their duties are. And in many cases, they kind of don't understand that clearly. So that's why there are people who are wrongly entitled, that they are saying that, oh, we shouldn't have been fired. Oh, we shouldn't have gotten this kind of thing because, blah, blah, blah. We deserve better than this. I know there are many people like that. However, does this
at the end of the day, they're hurt. It's rejection, right?
Exactly,
yes.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to is I gave my time, my loyalty, my effort, my belief. I was part of something bigger. And now I'm not. They just kicked me to the curb.
But you think that's fair?
Right?
Like, because we need to humanize the interpreter.
It's understandable.
But think about the interpreter working day in, day out, doing their best every day, and then suddenly it's all gone. It might be legal, but like, do you guys think that that is something fair to do with they're not employees, but the independent contractors that have been working with you for 2 or 3 years doing their best? Like, we need to understand their pain as well, because like, I don't know, for me,
100%. Look, I mean, the company, like, I mean, I can argue both sides of this. Yeah. I can go and tell you that the company has no obligation whatsoever. And I think I cut out again.
No, you're here still. Yeah, we can hear you.
Am I back?
Yeah. No, you're here. I can hear you.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, so the company has no obligation. It's an exchange of money for services, right? That said, I've always been a big believer that leadership and the way you treat people is a reflection on you and on the company, right? So, you do want to do right by as many people as you can. You just have to look at like where your priorities. Sometimes new company, new people, of course, they don't have the relationships that the other people had, and what their responsibility is to the relationships they do have, which is their board of directors, their investors, whatever, which sucks for everybody else because they do get kicked to the curb, right? Which there are ways to protect yourself from this. It's not fun, right, necessarily, but you can do it. And Mason, I think some of your videos touch on this quite a bit, which is think of yourself as a business and have multiple clients. I think you said that you've worked for or work for 8 different agencies, something like that, right? So that if one stops purchasing your services, you've got a backup, you've got another client. And this is not just our industry. That's why, I love that we think we're special, that there is no other industry exactly like ours, right? There's a lot of industries that have things very similar, right? If you're a lawyer, you got to attract clients. If your client goes bankrupt or disappears or is bought by another company, you lose that client. It's just the way it goes, right? It's changes in life, and you have to be able to adapt to those changes. I think Darwin said, like, the species that survives the best is the strongest. It's not the most intelligent. It's the most adaptable. And that's why I would really, really encourage, enjoy it while it lasts. If you have a great client, get all the benefit out of it you can. Get all of it, right? And enjoy it, but be ready, because there's going to be a rainy day. And I don't walk outside and complain that it's raining. I take an umbrella, right? I protect myself from the rain because I cannot make it stop raining as much as I wish I could, right? And the company will always go for its profit. As much as we wish otherwise, it's got a duty to go for its profit, because without profit, it doesn't exist. It can't provide for anybody else, right? So, Mason, as you can see, I talk a lot too, right? Feel free to interrupt.
No worries.
But I have a point.
No,
make.
I think Mark,
I want to hear this from
yes,
Mason,
please, yeah.
Mason and Mark. Like, let's be honest here. We're talking about voice. As far as I know, most interpreters who worked or are working with voice, they used to work a fixed shift. Am I right? Am I wrong so far? If you are working a fixed shift, Monday
I would
through
say a high
Friday,
percentage of them, yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't that look like a job? I know you're talking about approaching this with a business mentality, but how do you get more clients? Am I back?
I can hear you, Mason.
No, I think I lost Mateus.
Yeah, am I here?
I'm not hearing.
Mateus?
Oh, now I hear you.
You repeat your question?
No, sure. I was just saying, like, the interpreters, they are working fixed shifts, right? Some of them Monday through Friday. They work weekends as well. Doesn't that look like a job? Because you're telling them to approach this as a business and get more clients. How do they get more clients if they're working Monday through Friday, a fixed shift, and then all of a sudden their contracts are gone? Like, we have to approach this and think about their pain as well. Like, they are working day in and out, and then suddenly it's gone. Like, what tips do you have for the interpreters working like that? How can they prepare
100%
themselves?
agree with you. Mason, I'll let you take first stab at this.
Sure, yeah. No, I mean, I talk about this quite often, and I am a big fan of just independent contractor position with no minimum hourly requirements. So we're not taking like scheduled shifts, so to say, and that you are on demand. You can go in and out anytime, and you do that for multiple companies. I sort of, in my videos, I sort of preach that is really ultimately the way to do this, in this industry, just because, things like this, whatever we just talked about with voice, stuff like that happens. But also at the same time, to kind of back up what Mateo was saying against what Mark was just talking about in my head, not everyone is able to afford that. Not everyone in this world, whether they are in Mexico or in the States or in, I don't know, like Venezuela or wherever they are, not everyone is able to work for 8 different companies and just log in and out and get paid a decent hourly so that they can make a living. Not everyone can do that. And yes, I personally think it is really easy for anybody, including us 3 and anyone in the industry or whoever work at the LSPs, to say, that's just how it is. That's just the market. And that's just because you speak Spanish. That's just because you speak Portuguese, where there are many, many, many interpreters. Well, too bad. That's just how it is. I think it is easy to say like that. But in my head, although I understand, I majored in economics. So supply and demand, yes, that is everything. Yes, I understand that. However, this factor of this ESG that I kind of mentioned, that has to be there to a certain level where people are at least guaranteed minimum wage. I don't know if I'm being too naive, but yes, I think I will let Mark talk from here.
That's a whole nother topic, right? Because there are wage differences or service rate differences or whatever you want to call them across every industry. I mean, I paid different prices for Starbucks. I'm in Mexico than I do in the United States. Like, the price is just different, right? Starbucks is still expensive wherever. Yeah, at Starbucks, thank you. But the price is different, and I imagine it's different in Brazil, and I imagine it's different in Canada. Like if you've even, Tim Hortons has driven them out of Canada, right? But so I'm a big fan of accepting reality as it is and dealing with it until you have a way to change it, right? And whether that's changing your reality or whether that's changing the industry reality, I mean, those are two different things. Really tough, right? So, I mean, yes, Spanish, yes, Portuguese, yes, you with Korean. You have a lot of options that maybe a Marshallese speaker doesn't, right? But those Marshallese speakers, they're in high demand and they're going to be able to negotiate a much higher rate, even though they're doing less permanent work. They might take an hourly shift at, I don't know, let's just say $50 an hour. I'm making this up. I have no idea, right? Because they're so high in demand and they want to get paid to sit there because they might be needed, but they never know. And they would be crazy to take even a $2 a minute rate if they only get 2 minutes an hour. No one wants to sit there for $4, right? For that particular language. But if you are a new interpreter and $4 is more than a living wage for you, that's great. Because as you said, economics, I'm a minor in economics, like not only supply and demand, but barrier to entry. We're in an industry where the only barrier to entry, the only thing stopping you from getting in is that you speak 2 languages fluently. And let's be honest, not even that, right? Because I've heard interpreters that some of them that get started, just like some of the providers you guys have interpreted for, their English is not great. It's just not, but their language might be so rare that not great English is better than no English, right? So the barriers to entry to getting into interpreting are, unfortunately, for those of you that have been doing it for a while and have real merit, real professionalism, real skill, it's very low, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's bad for you because it means there's no moat. You're going to get more competition, right? But there's also a way to progress in this industry. I love picking on some of the people that I've worked with over the years. It is just a beautiful thing. And I hope I don't look that old, but I've been in this industry for quite some time. So I've seen some people really progress. They might start off on site or they might start off remote and then they get into simul or they get into federal court interpreting or they get into something that is a little bit more higher. I'm going to say higher level. I don't want to denigrate what remote interpreters do every single day. It's a different skill set, right? That does take some skill building to do simul and to do some of these other interpreting susritas, whispered it, assignments, right? But those people are interested in doing it. And I'm a big fan of, even if you're not interested in progressing to other areas in terms of skill building or whatnot, in making your money work for you, because you don't have to be broke, right? No matter how much money you make, you will find a way to spend it. We have Finance Fridays that we've started, right? And we're going to keep going on and on about this because, there's studies, I have to look it up, but if you look up studies in the United States about lottery winners, and if you don't know about the lottery in the United States, you can win millions of dollars, millions. The vast majority of people who, the sports players, a lot of them have gotten a lot better now, but so many people that make millions and millions and millions of dollars lose it. They lose it because they don't know how to manage it. And I haven't made millions of dollars this year, right? That'd be awesome. Right? I don't think, Mason or Mateos, right? But, the point is you can learn to make your money work for you no matter how much you make. And it's the story you tell yourself. Are you going to be a victim?
Yeah.
And just take it? Or are you going to be somebody that makes whatever you have work for you? Because I've said it before and I'll say it again, right? Like, you guys are smarter than I am. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I'm not the brightest light bulb or whatever you want to say. If I can do it, anybody can do it. All it takes is there's a will and there's a way. So back to what you said, Mason, it sucks to say that's the way it is. So don't say that's the way it is. Say that's the way it is right now. And then figure out what's going to change, your personal situation or the industry situation. And I got news for you, brother. You're not changing the industry by yourself overnight.
Not at all.
It takes a community. It takes a lot of consistent work. It's going to go in waves, right? So as I've been in this, I've seen lots of buyouts. I've seen lots of companies start really great and then go downhill, right? In terms of how they treat people, right? Not just in the language industry, but especially in our industry. And It's just this changing season. And again, if you don't like it, you have a couple choices. Find a way to deal with it and change your situation. Find a way to get out. Find a way to find something you do like, or look at the positives. Look at all the people you're helping, right? So I don't know. Again, long-winded, really went off here. But
Yeah, but I still want to
you
challenge
gotta
you
find a way
here,
to deal
Mark,
with
and
it.
Mason as well. Like, I want you to give a practical tip now, one or two tips that will help the interpreter that's caught in this situation. He's working fixed shifts, 6 to 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. You are telling this guy that he should approach this with a business mentality, but that to me looks like an employment relationship because they're working for 6, 8 hours a day every day. They don't have room for more clients. What tips, like practical tips, do you give to that interpreter so he can be prepared in case something happens to him, just like with voice, like from one week to the other week that guy does not have a job anymore? What can he actually do to protect himself now? What are these skills that they need to develop? Let's not talk just about finances because some people are living paycheck to paycheck. That's something we need to admit. So technically wise, what tips do you guys give to this specific interpreter that's working like 8 hours a day for the same client and it looks like an employment relationship? How can he protect himself?
Okay, I'll go first, and I'll just give you a couple. I do have to say one: finance. You've got to have an emergency fund. You've got to build an emergency fund. What is an emergency fund? 3 to 6 months of income. You got to build up as much as you can. Even if it's 1 month, you've got to build up something so that if this happens, you are not, excuse the words, shit out of luck, right? You've got to have some money, and you're like, oh, I've got these expenses. I got this. You got to find a way. Join our Finance Friday. Work with other people that can explore your finances. We'll do practical tips, but there is a way to build up an emergency fund. 2, you just said they're working 8 hours. Like, I hate to say this, but you might have to sacrifice short term for long term benefit. What does that mean? That means take 1 more hour a day, 1 more hour. Work on your CV, your resume, start sending it out to other companies, right? See what's out there. You can find a list of interpreting companies online if you just Google. I'm going to give you the biggest tip ever. Go for the ones that are in the United States or Canada or Europe. You do not want to work for an intermediary if you can avoid it. Why? They have their place. Don't get me wrong, but not if you're an experienced interpreter.
Yeah.
The intermediaries are between you and the voices of the world, right? Voice has direct clients who are the hospitals, the courts, the schools. They pay Voice, Voice pays you. Awesome. That's the way it should work. But between Voice and you, there's all of these companies now trying to come online and saying, Mateos, come work for me and I'll pay you X, Y, or Z. Who's their client? Their client is Voice. They don't have direct clients, right? I guess you could say Voice is the direct client, but they're not providing services to companies in the United States. They're becoming middlemen who are trying to insert themselves and make some money. That's fine, right? In some cases, it does work and it can make sense, and it's good for them. There might be some cases where it's good for the interpreter, but my advice is look for the voices, look for the companies like that. There's a lot of really good ones out there that I could mention, but we're not taking sides here. I'm just using Voice because it was mentioned. Obviously, that's not where I would go today, but find a direct LSP that has direct clients in the United States, Canada, or Europe, right? You can also search around for your own, but take an hour a day, sacrifice. If you can't build up your emergency fund, make it 2 to 3 hours a day, sacrifice. 2 hours that you're working extra at where you're at to build up some extra funds and just sock it all away. And 1 hour with your resume, learn AI.
Yeah,
dude,
learn AI.
There are resume builders out there with AI that will help you work on your resume. ChatGPT will help you with your resume, right? Tailor it. Work on your approach. Anyway, those are my 2 tips. Sacrifice short term for long term. Build up an emergency fund. Mason?
Mateus asked for a practical tip. I honestly agree with every single point Mark just said. Like, that's basically what I preach. That's basically what I tell. If anybody asks me, like, sends me an email, that's usually the thing that I give to other people. Since that has been said, let me go a little bit outside of the word practical, but something that's still important.
Sure.
That is I don't know what the right word is. I don't want to call it spiritual, but something that goes in your brain, maybe a little bit more in your mind, because the situation that Mateus just described, that's tough. Like, I don't know if anyone who's watching this are in that exact spot. You try interpreting 6 to 8 hours every day, Monday to Friday, on a core business hour for a big company who has back-to-back calls.
Crazy.
You do that for a month, I will give you a standing applause. Like, really, you are rocking it. I would be very surprised if you just don't burn out, because honestly, that's what I did. I did that for like a good a year and a half. Every day, Monday to Friday, core business hours, I worked back-to-back calls. Well, that company did have a 15 seconds and a 30-minute of like a break, a non-paid kind of thing. I don't know. That was tough. That was the toughest time of my life. How did I do it? What did I do? This is not healthy, and I don't wish this to anybody, but I overworked. I actually picked up more shift, and I did what Mark said, basically. I just kept looking out for more, better, different things that I can do. And just I guess this is one practical tip I can give you. For anyone, those who are worried about, just like spending all your time during the 6 to 8 hours of work and not being able to do anything because you're too tired. Yes, that's going to happen. But also, you will have time if you if you make it to have time. Like, it's just that way.
You can't tell me you're not on your phone an hour a day, right? Leave
Exactly,
Instagram,
yeah.
leave TikTok, leave Facebook for an hour a day, right? If that hour a day is watching Mason on YouTube, okay, that's well spent. But
Thank you.
The others,
It is indeed,
so
yeah.
The other
yes,
thing,
please
and
go
this
ahead.
probably happened to you, Mason, negotiate. Like, do you always accept the rate that they give you, the recruiter? Do you always accept whatever they tell you the very first time?
I did on my first one. I did on my first ever like a free on demand no schedule kind of thing. That was my first one after getting out of that scheduled every day working 40 hours a week kind of thing. I got out of that. I asked for it. I think the offer that I got was like 25 cents or 30 cents per minute, which I thought was like, just me doing the math, like, oh, per minute times 60. Okay, that's like 18 US. So that's like 22 Canadian dollar. That's better than minimum wage. So that's what I did, which is a huge mistake. Ever since then, I learned what I, can get, what I can ask, and how to ask of those things. So to answer your question, never, not anymore.
Yeah, you can negotiate. You can almost always negotiate. There are some companies will say, "Look, I can offer you $4.50 an hour, and that's it," and they won't budge from there, and that's fine. If you need the job, if you need the position, take it, and provide services for, I don't know, 2 weeks, a month, and then try to go back to them, right? Because you will always be told no if you don't ask. 100% of the time, the answer is no if you don't ask. If you do ask, you might get a yes, right? Especially after they've seen your value, after like, oh man, this Mason guy's working 10 hours a day. He's always here, right? He's just killing it. Our quality department says he's good. So how about 5 instead of 4.50, right? Like, I'd love to stay. I'd love to work more hours. I want to give you more. What can you give me, right? It's all in the how you ask and having shown the value. Granted, you can't renegotiate every 2 weeks, right? That's not going to happen. But every little bit helps, and you can work your way up, right? And then you can keep working out on the side. Like, there's a female Arabic interpreter who I just admire so much because she provided services to a company I used to work for, which you guys can all figure that out. But she also provided services outside of that. Not only did she renegotiate with me religiously, like once every 6 months to a year, like she had clients outside of us, outside of the company I worked for, that she made much more money with. She used us as a base and used that knowledge to negotiate with other clients. They might have had less volume, but they paid much higher rates. She even had some direct clients where she, went and worked for a law firm or whatnot because she was just a hustler. I mean, she is a hustler, right? So, there's a lot of things you can do. You can combine it. I'm not going to pick too much on Mateos, but Mateos has gotten into simultaneous interpreting, right? And I mean, Mateos, what's the pay like compared? Don't tell us exact
Yeah, I'm
amounts.
not
But
gonna
what's,
say the
what's
exact
the
number,
pay
but yeah, like
like
three
in
times
simul
more,
compared
3 to
to?
4 times more, even 5 times more as you grow more experienced.
I think you'll get even up to 10 times more as you
Yeah.
get more
Yes.
experienced,
Yeah.
right? And there's all kinds of stuff that goes with it. And you say, Mark, but I don't like that. Okay,
Do
find
something
something you
else.
do
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, but
right? There are
I
people
have to
that
bring
do
up an
guided
important point, Mark,
tours.
and Mason as well. Like this is something I have been seeing that's very recurrent on the market now. You guys might not like what I'm gonna say, but I feel like that the interpreters want to hear about it. The entrance in the market, like the barriers to enter the market, as Mark said, they're very low, right? You just need to be bilingual. Some companies are not even requiring a 40-hour training program anymore. These are facts, right? Some companies, they don't require that anymore. How do you compete? How do you negotiate better rates when there are newcomers, like new interpreters who will accept to work for 1/3 of your rate? And the interpreters complain in our WhatsApp group. I hear that all the time. They complain that the companies will offer 1/3 of the regular rate. Interpreters will accept, and some companies, they prioritize having more staff than actually having quality. So what matters is, do they have someone there to service the call? Some companies, they don't care about the quality. They care about having someone there and paying 1/3 of the rate to that person. So how do you keep yourself relevant in the OPI market? If it doesn't matter how much you try, how much you work, especially for the OPR market, there will be someone that will come and accept to work for 1/3 of the rate. This is what the interpreters are saying. So I wanted to hear from you guys. What are the insights and the thoughts
Okay,
that
you're
you
going to
have?
keep us honest. Give Mason a minute. Mason, you take a minute first, then I'll take a minute.
All right,
Let's
Mason,
try to keep this
go.
brief.
All right, quick. Okay. Um, Sorry, I don't have much time. 1 minute, it's not a
No, you
lot.
can take it.
But just kind of going back to what Mateus and what your new simultaneous gig and stuff like that, it pays a lot more. That is true. That is correct and true. I tried that for myself, and the numbers can be drastically different. If I want to share my numbers, comparing the time what I would get paid per hour of those shift scheduled hours kind of thing, working at home for a remote company, compared to this job that I was interpreting for like some government related people who are coming from Korea, blah, blah, blah. The difference was roughly 20 to 25 times. It's
Whoa.
huge. So you can do the math in your head. It's going to be huge. Like the money that I was getting paid as a remote interpreter is not $4 or $5. I live in Canada, so it's like at least like slightly over minimum wage. So when I first learned that there is so much discrepancy that we can get between working as a part of a small part of a big company versus building your own kind of brand and identity and kind of putting yourself out there. It is huge, monetary speaking. That's huge. And just kind of now transitioning to Mateus' question, we can't compete, of course, but it is not always going to be that way. I'm sure at the end of the day it might be, but companies like, for example, I work with like 4 or 5 companies right now. They are not going to fire me as soon as they hire another Korean interpreter who just entered the market, who can do it for like 1/3 of the cost that I do. Like they are not going to do that changes like every year or even every 2 years. It's not going to happen that drastically. That's first what I want to say. And second, I think it's more about self-awareness, what you can do and what you are willing to do, I guess. Because for me, if I were to do the math and actually believe that, okay, the money that I make as a remote interpreter for this, working at this LSP, like here and there, this vendor here or there, is this much, and I can make times this how much ever if I were to do it privately. If that math works out and you have the ability, you have the willingness to put it, then I think that's the transition that you need to make, because that's only the viable option really to make that work out for you. But now then I have to talk about a whole different thing why I am not doing that, but that's a different topic, so I will move it to Mark.
Yeah, just before Mark, you say something, I just want to make it clear
Okay.
that that's not my opinion, right? This is what I read and I hear a lot from our community members. I don't like at all victim mentality. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you know that I talk about that all the time. But this is what we hear from our community. That's why I raised that question. Very nice and interesting point, Mason. I appreciate your answer. Mark, do you have anything else that you would like to add? I know you have because you're smiling.
Yeah, I'm gonna be flippant and say ramen noodles, right? So the funny answer is like you can live off of ramen noodles for a little while, right? I don't like ramen noodles. I gotta be honest. Only the spicy Korean ones are really good.
I love
like
them.
those. Otherwise, no. And this is what's happening. We're being fed as interpreters. We're like the industry is moving towards trying to feed the end client ramen noodles all the time, right? Low quality. I'm sure there's some high quality ramen noodles. I don't really mean to knock ramen noodles, but we've all seen the cheap ramen noodles in the stores, right? I think that's a pretty universal thing. You can only tolerate that for so long, right? So as Mason said, like they're not going to get rid of everybody just because they have the cheaper. The demand is so high; it grows an estimated 17% year on year in the United States, right? I don't know what Canada's statistics are, but I'm sure that the demand for language interpretation continues to rise. Europe as well, right? So, and it's only going to get worse with the current political situation in the United States. Like it's only you're going to need interpreters, right? So there's going to be high demand still. They won't get rid of everybody. I agree with that. But the other thing is the end client won't take crap quality for a long time.
Yes.
It'll take it for a while, right? But we've all seen companies that come in, they're rock stars, they pay well, they get the best people, they have great quality programs, they get a lot of clients, then they end up selling typically. And what happens is exactly what happens with voice. Like now they want to, or before they sell or when they sell, they want to drop costs, increase profit margins because they can get way more money when they sell, right? Or if they just bought it, they want to do the same thing because whoever bought it, guess what they're going to do? They're going to resell it, right? They're bought by private equity. They're not going to keep it forever. So that leaves a space in the market for the LSP to come in, the language service provider, that again provides high quality and whatnot. And we just see the same trend. What we haven't seen in the market, in my opinion, right? Like I don't want to get sued, is a company that keeps that high water mark where quality is their guiding, like end all be all principle, right? It gets diluted. It's natural. I don't like it, but it does happen. So you will see a company come in a year, 2 years, 3 years, whenever the client demand is strong enough that it will support it, will come in and they'll start paying well again. They'll pay a lot more because they'll take the people that have been here for 4, 5, 6 years, 20 years, whatever, have dual certs, can pass a merit-based test, can show their qualifications, have their last 5 years of HIPAA compliant certificates, right? Whatever that is, those people will have the opportunity when the new company comes, and they'll get better pay, and it'll last a 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever that time span is, right? Which is why I go back to take advantage of it. But guess who's not going to take advantage of it? The person who doesn't have the double cert, who doesn't have HIPAA or other trainings, who hasn't improved, who can show that they've been doing it for 10 years, but I mean, that's it, because time in market does not equate to quality of service. I got to tell you, again, I'll use my example. I love to speak in analogies. I can cook for you. You would never pay me to cook. I'm 44 years old. I've been cooking for, let's say, 34 of those years, right? Maybe a little bit more. I am not a good cook. I leave that to other people. Time in market does not equate to quality, right? So this is the time, even though your earnings may be down and maybe going down a little bit, to continue to improve. There's all kinds of free courses online. There's all kinds of inexpensive courses. There are more providers popping up, and we will have some interesting offerings for you guys in the future because we want to develop you professionally, right? Take advantage of that stuff. Change your mentality and look for things. There's a book, it's kind of old now, but it's called The Millionaire Next Door. If you haven't read it, recommend it. The people that tend to take advantage of opportunities are the ones that are open to them, right? They talked about leaving I think it was a $20 bill at a bar, like under the stool. And the people that found it They tended to be optimists who would look around them, right? The pessimists of like, oh, I never find anything. They weren't open to opportunities. They wouldn't find anything. You get what you perceive, right? So, you can be a realist. I have no problem with realists. I do really don't, I don't think you should be a pessimist and just look at the negative because, man, who wants that in their life? I don't know. If you like being upset all the time, more power to you. I respect everyone. You have your ability, but and I went way over my self-imposed 1 minute, but be open to opportunities, write it out, get better. There will be other things that come along. Look for more clients. Not everybody's going to pay the same. I mean, there's just so much you can always do, and it's going to change. And also start learning AI. We're going to talk about AI in a lot in future episodes, and we have just a few minutes left with Mason, so I want to go to that a little bit with him now.
Yeah.
Mason, in your opinion, what is AI going to do to the interpreting market?
I actually made a video about this, so if you guys want to, if anyone wants to hear more about it, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. That question, a very, very, very important part that needs to be added is, I guess, by when.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, if we are given enough time, it's going to be completely replaced. AI will completely replace all translators and interpreters, in my opinion. That is, when is that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe 100 years later, 150, 200, 300, 1,000 years later. I do not know. But I think everyone can guess that with given enough time, it will definitely go away. And by that time, a whole lot will change for sure. But I guess that is kind of irrelevant. Let's talk about in the next 10, 20 years. I do not think it will be enough to interpret replace everybody. Of course not. But I can definitely see how it could help interpreters who know what they're doing a lot, not necessarily do their job just better, like in terms of better quality, but more easily. Like they will be able to do things like more easily. They will be able to do things without sweating too much, which means it will bring up their productivity and everything like that. So that gives them, the people who know what they're doing, a lot more upper hand, and that will, I think, just kind of flush out the ones that don't do that. That's my opinion.
So you're saying short term, the people that learn to use AI, work with AI, will be able to make more money because they might be able to work more hours with less cognitive load, be able to do their tasks more easily, something to that effect?
I think just, yes, I guess in a sense, yes. I'm not necessarily sure about whether they will be like making more money. They will be taking all the pot or the share of the pie. I don't know if it will work like that, but for sure, people will be able to increase their productivity to the level where they can like allocate that same amount of energy that they would have spent on interpreting. They will be able to do other things with it, like, for example, me, like if I were to just like interpret every day, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, now, because it is much lighter load, I don't know how that would work. Like maybe it's just easier for me to interpret with the thing that helps me. Now that I can focus on other things that I can do with the AI stuff, like making business on my own, doing the translation work, machine translation, whatever, all those kind of things.
That's awesome. I see some big changes. Yeah, completely. Totally makes sense. I see some big changes coming as well, which I'll get into in a future episode. But I think you hit the nail on the head that you've got to really make that question time bound and able to, in order to answer it very well. Mateos, do you have any other questions for Mason as we wrap up?
I don't know. I just wanted to make sure I'm still here. I just wanted to talk for a little while with our audience. Maybe you've noticed that our video was freezing every now and then. We learn as we go, right? That's part of our process. And I hope you all had a great episode today. Mason, it's a pleasure to have you here. I've been watching your content for months now. Can't really believe that you're here. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. We look forward to have one more episode with you in the future and many more episodes if possible. We have to discuss AI more thoroughly. I agree with your opinion about AI as well. And for me, that's it. I just wanted to say, everybody, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter, because next week we are going to start to give away a free tech guide with over 100 pages. So you don't want to miss out on that. Subscribe to our newsletter, because once we hit 3,000 subscribers, we are going to start charging for that tech guide. So don't miss it. You just have to subscribe to the newsletter. Check out Mason's YouTube channel. He makes fantastic content. And check us out on LinkedIn as well. Yeah, that's everything I had to say from my end today.
Awesome. Mason, we would love it if you would give yourself a plug, and we will put the link for your videos and your training academy in the notes. But is there anything you'd like to say about it before we go?
Okay, before we go, I feel like, this just went by so quick. And yes, I would love to be back here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I would love to be back and talk more about stuff. Maybe at some point you will just, want to talk with me again. I'm not sure. But just one last thing that I want to share with anyone who is watching this. I just want to say this, like us, Mark, me, Mateos, here, it might look like that we are so distant, from you, whoever you're watching. It might feel like, oh, these guys they are the experts in the industry. They know what they're talking about. It's a different story from at the celebrity life. It's not that. I really don't think it is that. It might be like that. I don't know. Maybe at some point it might get like that. But my honest, just, thought process, or the goal that I want to have, is that I want people to know more about this before they start feeling like, okay, this is not it for me. I'm just going to exit and never look back here. Because there is so much that people can still get out of this market. That's what I believe. So, and I just hope what we do here, this podcast, my YouTube videos, all the newsletter things that you are doing, I hope that just reaches out more people, so that, it just makes the tiniest impact. I think that's what it matters. So thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. That's a great way to end. Take care, all.
All right.
Subscribe,
Thank you.
like.
Bye.
See you later.